I was cowering on the floor, a gun at my head. I was probably about to die.
So we have Emma Slade with us, and I don't think she needs any introduction. She's an author, a charity worker. She has been a high-flying business person, and then her shift from a banker to Buddhism. So that's what the topic today in the Wow podcast. Emma, a warm welcome from India. Thank you so much for giving the time on Wow podcast.
It's absolutely my pleasure, and I'm sorry I can't visit India at this time because I'm used to often being in India. So at least I have a flavor of it talking to you.
Absolutely.
Okay, hello. I am Emma Slade, and I have the honor to be on the Wow podcast.
Wow Podcast with Kausty.
Actually, this incident was a life-changing point for me. And with the time I had left, I knew I was going to make a difference in the world. And so I ended up founding a charity, which is something I never, ever imagined doing.
What was the reaction of your family when you decided to be a monk?
Well, I think it was a gradual process. I know that my, certain events encouraged me to change. But from my family's perspective, they've seen these themes, I think, developing in me over time. And so they were not surprised. I think my mother said something like, oh, you've decided to go the whole way now, she said. And so nobody else really was very surprised. No, they didn't have any shock or anything because they had seen the many years of yoga, many years of interest in meditation, then going to Bhutan, meeting my Lama. And so whilst it may seem more shocking from the outside, to people who knew me well, I think they saw it as a natural progression, you can say.
Though we all know about the story, but if you can just tell us a little bit about this journey process. You were in Hong Kong, if I'm not.
Yes, I was. So I became a financial analyst for a big global bank, and we were investing money in the emerging markets. That was my role. I'd first worked in New York and then London and then in Hong Kong, and I decided to stay in Hong Kong because I love Asia. And so we were investing about $1 billion US, and so it was quite a responsible job, you can say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that was all fine. I found it very interesting, very stimulating, very exciting. You know, the financial markets can be very, if you want a lot of drama, you work in the financial markets. And but on a business trip to Jakarta in 1997, I was, you can say, held hostage in my hotel room by an armed gunman. Okay. And that was a very life-changing experience, as you can imagine. So that was one of the main catalysts, I think, for this change and re-evaluation of life and what mattered to me. But as I say, you have these pivotal moments, but then there is also the question of digesting those moments and then deciding how you're going to put it into action. And that was the next few years after that.
Absolutely. And I read an interview where you mentioned that when there was this incident was happening, you just said that, God, I don't want to die.
I think that was particularly because I was still very young at that point, right? 1997, I think it feels like a lifetime ago. It's a world before iPhones. Can you even imagine it? And so you have to bear in mind that I was still pretty young, and I didn't feel that I had done anything of any value with my life. So to think that I was losing my life before I'd done anything meaningful or felt any real fulfillment, you know, I don't know, happiness, fulfillment, something in that area.
Absolutely.
To die before that had occurred, I think it was that I didn't want that to happen, you know. I really didn't want my life to end at that point. I mean, I'm sure we don't want our life to end at any point, but definitely I wasn't ready to go at that point, yeah.
Just to take this question forward, so since now you're practicing Buddhism or you are following Buddhism, in your personal life, what is the value of happiness if I compare it with the business side of yours?
From a Buddhist perspective, the happiness that we seek in our daily life is important because nobody wants to be suffering. So in our daily life, we want to be joyful, we want to realize the value of our life, etc. But mostly happiness in the worldly life is going to be temporary from a Buddhist perspective.
Absolutely.
So you have a nice relationship, and then the relationship probably maybe changes or isn't as nice. You have a nice car and then it maybe breaks down or something. So these are states of happiness, but they're not stable or permanent. Yeah. And so these are fine, but we should understand that they're not permanent. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I think you know from your Indian heritage and from the Buddhist heritage that with training, and if one is able to, then eventually there is a state of more permanent happiness, and this is a spiritual endeavor, isn't it?
I also read, Emma, that there is no God in Buddhism. Then what is the actual goal of a monk?
Well, the goal of a Buddhist practitioner is to become enlightened, which means free from the effects of karma, free from the effects of the afflictive emotions, in order to not require rebirth within samsara. And I'm sure I'm talking language here which you're very familiar with there in
Absolutely.
India, isn't it?
Absolutely.
From a Mahayana Buddhist perspective, which is the way that I am following, we would aim for the state of what is called a bodhisattva, which again is a Sanskrit word, so I think you know it very well, Jungchub Sempa. So you can see a slightly different goal there. So the wish to be free of samsara, not to take rebirth, is slightly altered because there is a willingness to take rebirth in samsara for the benefit of all sentient beings. But if we bring it down to a very basic level, what you can say is that any practitioner is wishing to be more free of anger, greed, and selfishness.
So, Emma, do you believe in rebirth?
Absolutely. I don't think you can be a Buddhist. Well, I mean, maybe you can be a Buddhist not believing in rebirth, but if you read the Buddhist texts, we have to study the Buddhist texts, right? And they, existence is seen as cyclical, coming again and again and again. It's like described as a dancer through time, dancing through time again and again and again and again. And so, I think if you properly study the Buddhist texts, that's clearly the philosophy behind Buddhism, and it's one that personally feels right to me, even if I didn't study the texts.
I did a quick research and I found out about like 90% of Buddhism is there in China as well as Cambodia and Thailand. But you chose Bhutan. Why?
Yeah, so as you say, Buddhism exists in many countries and with many different lineages and some surface difference in terms of colors or particular formalities or rituals which might occur in those different countries. I had always wanted to visit Bhutan, and actually I talked to a lot of people who feel the same. They feel it's a special place that they too would be drawn to visit. Yeah. It's actually not very easy. They'll say, I don't have the time, I meant to, I didn't get around to it. And so when you're doing the early part of your training, you need an inspirational teacher that gives you the determination to carry on and do what you're supposed to do. So the teacher's so important. And because my teacher is in Bhutan, that was a big part of why Bhutan was the one for me.
Nice. And I also know that you have a Buddhist name also. If I'm not wrong, it's called, you're also known by Ani Pema Deki. Am I right?
Yeah. That's right. So Ani means a female monastic.
Okay. So
it's a title like Lama or Gelong or whatever. And then the given name to me is Pema, which is Padma in Sanskrit, lotus. And Deki means very happy or joyfully happy. So joyfully happy lotus, something like this.
Yeah, so a joyful lotus.
Yeah, that's right. So let's hope, eh? Do our best.
Thank you. Set Free was your first book, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. What was the reason behind why you wrote a book?
I wrote the book Set Free because in 2015 I founded a charity, a UK registered charity for Bhutan, for helping special needs children in Bhutan in particular. And it was called Opening Your Heart to Bhutan. And it was my way of acting with compassion, you know, not just praying or whatever, but really doing some compassionate action. I felt it was really important to do it in the country that I had gained so much from and loved so much. So then, of course, I realized that a lot of people haven't heard of Bhutan. They haven't heard of me. Like, how was I going to make this charity help a lot of people? And so one of my students actually said, well, I have the feeling you've had an interesting life. I don't know what about it, but I think you must have had quite an interesting life. Why don't you write your story? And then you can give the money to the charity and people will know about the charity. And so that was the reason. And so I wrote the book, and luckily enough, some publisher liked it, and then it came out. And I think you can even find it in India. I think maybe in Kindle is easier in India at the moment in this COVID time, but it's gone to quite a few different countries, and I'm really pleased at the beneficial effect it's had, and through it the charity has done far more than I could ever have dreamed of.
So Ima, is it possible during this phase of our life, if someone is working from home, if someone is at home back from office, can we meditate in our daily life? If yes, how?
Maybe if we look at this in a bit of a larger way, what I'm feeling at the moment for people is that people are quite tired and anxious and slightly ground down with the whole COVID situation, isn't it?
True.
People need to know what brings out the best in them, what it is they need to be okay in their body. I would never say that meditation is the only thing to do in a situation of difficulty. Sometimes it might be the best thing to do, and sometimes it may not be the most helpful thing to do, yeah? So from a Buddhist point of view, we have many practices.
Okay.
We have many practices, and we have a big emphasis on practicing compassion.
Okay.
Compassion to all beings. So all I would say is that look for the practices that bring out the best in you. Look for the practices that bring you a sense of peace, of connectedness with other beings, that bring you joy, that make you realize that you have meaning and that you are loved and that you can love others, etc. Now, meditation may be one route to that, but it may not be the only one.
So how can we get in touch with you?
So just on Facebook, you can find me as Emma Slade. It's quite easy. I think Instagram, there's also Emma Slade. I think there's a website, Emma Slade. So I really don't think it's hard to find me. And if you find me, I will do my very best to answer every message personally. I do try to do that with everybody who reaches out to talk to me.
Thank you so much. All the links of the social media will be there in the description below. Buddhism is a religion or it's a philosophy according to you?
Yeah. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama says that we can consider Buddhism as a religion, as a philosophy, or even as a science.
Okay.
Because actually Buddhism looks very carefully at the nature of reality, which is something different perhaps from the religions. So we can think of it as a religion, a philosophy, or a science. So for me, it's a devotional thing. It is a religious thing. I became a nun. And that has certain trainings and it has a certain path. For others, it may be more a philosophy, which is about simplicity, about kindness, about being the best human that you can be.
Whenever we meet someone, a human, an animal, an insect, a bird, we have the opportunity to care for them, even if it's just by smiling at them. It'll make them happier. So I would encourage you to smile. Smile at everybody you meet under every circumstance.
Thank you so much, Ima, for giving me the time on this Wow podcast.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much, and best of luck with it all.